To Real Estate Redefined. And I say welcome back because we used to have this show back in 2019.
Over a year ago.
Can you believe it? Back in the good old days.
I know.
And now we are back. So I've got Ryan Newlin here with me, the man of the, tell us about your award you just got.
Oh, my award?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. It's for the Home Builders Association. I got Associate of the Year. So
no big deal. I'm just
well
chilling with an associate.
I'm on the board of directors for this Home Builders, and I like all those folks involved with that organization. It's a great organization. But last year, they had several events, and I catered those events for them.
Oh.
They bought the food, and I cooked it. So that
Nice.
was so I like barbecuing, and so I did it, and it worked well.
Well, hey, we'll just have to like make an event and just be like, hey, Ryan.
There you go.
Just
No, I got a free catering service.
There you go. Yeah. So call Ryan for all your catering needs. So, okay. Speaking of, we were talking about last year, 2020, craziness
2020 was
ensued.
crazy.
But it was actually a pretty good year for real estate.
Yes, it was the best year
Huh.
for real estate in San Angelo, and I think most places in the country ended up being, prices went up and inventory went down. That's, we stopped doing this show right at the end of 2019, and we were just rocking along in 2020. And I went and looked back in my notes from like my meetings that I had early in 2020, and at that point there was, 250 houses on the market.
Wow.
Everything was good. That was, that was down from 2018. There was 400 houses on the market, and then March hit. And we weren't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
We didn't know.
No
if we
one knew what was going to happen.
There's states and cities that couldn't sell real estate at all. In Texas, we were deemed essential, so we were still working, although we weren't working from the office. And then it started to go crazy, and it's never really. We haven't been able to regain any traction as far as getting more inventory on the market. We're sitting at 150 houses on the market, so way down from the average.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for the last 8 or 9 months. So there's more houses selling than normal, but if there would even be more if there was more houses to sell. So
So do you want to talk about the kind of the development process? Because obviously we need more housing here.
Yeah. Actually, they did a housing study not long ago at the chamber luncheon last week. I know the HBA talked about it a bunch, but there's multiple developments that are getting the approval process going through the city that are going to be popping up all over town.
Okay.
So,
are we talking houses? Are we talking apartments? Are we talking, what are we talking?
I think there are apartments. The majority are single family homes.
Okay.
And then there's that area out behind like Jim Bass Ford that's got the small little houses. And I think those are going to be just all rent houses. It's a guy at Houston.
Yeah.
So it should help take the need, there's still a big need for housing in this town and affordable housing for sure.
Yeah.
That's what's went, prices, they've been going up since I've been in real estate, since 2006, but they would just go up a little bit at a time. Last year we had a big jump.
Yeah.
So we went from the average price in San Angelo last year was $218,000. The year before it was $202. And the year before that it was $188. So that's like a $30,000 jump in 2 years. So if you sold your house last year, you made more money.
Yeah.
But if you had to go buy something, you spent it on the back end. So.
Yeah. So good for one group, bad for another one, right?
Exactly.
Well, okay. So I was actually at that luncheon, and I did talk to some folks from the HBA, and she explained basically why the prices are so high. It's because, San Angelo is kind of
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And so it takes more, people, more time, more effort. Can you kind of explain that a little bit as far as like...
Well, okay. So, first you got these lumber prices spiked in June. That was due to COVID because I think in Canada where all these lumber mills are located, they didn't think anyone was going to be building houses.
Yeah.
They thought COVID, everything shut down. That was not the case. So they were behind on their supply. So that's just pure supply and demand increased the lumber prices. In the fall, they started to come down again, and then they jumped back up in December. So we've got high lumber prices to begin with, and which in San Angelo, we even pay more because that lumber comes in on a big train to Dallas, and then they've got to load it onto a truck and physically drive it down here. So
there are a lot of middlemen involved.
Lots of middlemen.
Yeah.
And then we've got a lack of subcontractors in this town. So, you got AC guys and painters and plumbers and all that, and they just charge more out here. There's fewer of them, and all that kind of goes in. The land costs are expensive. It's expensive to put in streets and put in utilities. And so it's just like a perfect storm, and it creates high prices on these new homes being built.
Yeah. And that's good to really explain that, because I know, several folks, they were asking, well, why are the prices so high? Like, why? And so that kind of explains there's a lot of things leading up to the price.
One of the good things, though, right now is interest rates are so low that, 3 years ago, you might have been paying a lower price for the house, and today you're paying higher, but the interest rates have dropped so much. They're right around 3% today, I think, that you might be paying less today than you were paying 3 years ago, even though you're paying a higher price for your monthly payment. So, and just based on the research I try to do on interest rates, it doesn't seem like they're going to be going up anytime soon. The government's going to try to hold them low just to help everybody out.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's very interesting. So as far as 2020 goes, what are some of the things that you noticed that maybe you didn't expect, or you were like, oh, well, that's the opposite of what I predicted?
Well, like the things I wrote down for 2020, like that shocked me was the fact that everyone merged into like Zoom meetings and FaceTime showing so easily. So we dealt with a lot of people moving here from out of state. That particularly military buyers that typically would take a week off and come in and look at houses and make a decision and then move here 3 months later. Those trips weren't happening. So those moves were going to happen. And so what we were doing is, getting on FaceTime and walking through houses and selling way more houses sight unseen physically than normal. So, and that's still happening today.
Wow. So that's something that you just carried over, just showing on FaceTime and.
Yep. And we've decided to, like, when we go tour new houses that come on the market, there's part of the company that can't come along or doesn't feel comfortable coming along. So we're streaming those houses on our Facebook group and making sure that even if you're not at the office, you're still getting the same thing that you would be if you were here. So
Right. Well, that's interesting. We all had to learn how to adapt, I think, last year.
We all needed more Zoom stock. That's for sure.
I'm tired of Zoom meetings myself, but they are pretty handy.
Mine are, I don't know if I'll go back. I like it.
You like it?
I like it. I just think it's efficient. And before, I have 65 agents at the office.
Oh.
And so we would have meetings and 25 would be there.
Yeah.
And so those 25s would get the benefit of being at the meeting. Now, since they're on Zoom, I stream them to our Facebook page and everyone gets to see what's going on in the meeting. So
that's good.
I think it's more efficient in some ways.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's recorded, so if someone wants to go back, if they're out of town, they can go back and watch it the following week.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That definitely has some positives. So for folks who are watching this and they're like, okay, is now the time to buy a house? What is?
I think I don't know. You can't ever predict the real estate market. So, if you would have asked that same question in any of the last 15 years, it would have been yes. So I cannot think that this year it's not the same thing. It's yes.
Yeah.
It's always the time to buy a house if you don't own a house.
Yeah.
Because this last year, I think it was last year, the tax office, which everyone loves, they got rid of the discount. They used to give landlords a discount on their taxes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they got a discount. And it was based on how much rent they received on the property. That went away.
Okay.
So those landlords now, a year later, have carried those savings that they got rid of, they carry it onto the renter. And so rent prices are, if you've looked, they're high.
Yeah.
There's limited availability. So I think even more so now than any time, with the interest rates as low as they are and rent prices as high as they are, it is so much cheaper to own a house than rent a house.
Yeah.
And then you start building that equity. And right now I've seen people buy a house and 6 months later decide to sell it. Prices are going up so quick that sometimes they're getting out easily.
Yeah.
Typically, you need to live in your house several years before you gain enough equity to sell it.
Okay.
So, that's the goal for home ownership, is to get in there and use it. I always thought of it as a savings account, and you can't touch it. It's going up in value.
Yeah.
It's going your mortgage balance is going down. The value of the house is going up, and when you sell it, you create a big chunk of money that you can roll into another house.
Yeah.
You can roll it into an investment. You can do whatever you want with it. So it's a nice savings account you can't get to.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's interesting. If you could just kind of elaborate, because I know a lot of folks are like, okay, I'm buying this house. This is a huge purchase. What if I want to get out? What if I don't like it? What if I, what's your advice there? You said typically it's a few years.
Typically it is. You want to do your research, like, do you want to think, oh, I'm going to buy, I want to think about it. Just like any big purchase you're going to make. This is going to be the biggest one you'll make. Think about it and make sure you want to buy a house. And then do your research, find the right house and think about, am I going to be here in 2 years? Am I going to, is our family going to grow? Are we going to have kids go to college? So you want to make sure that, who knows what can happen, but the things that you can foresee happening, make sure you get those out of the way. Like, buy the house that's big enough, so you don't run into that, because it's risky buying a house and trying to sell it 6 months later. It's been happening, but it is risky. You want to be able to be in that house for a while.
Yeah.
With prices going the way they are, who knows? But it's still, you want to try to look at your life, figure out where you're going to be in a couple of years, whether you are going to be looking for job moves or whatever, and go accordingly.
Yeah.
You can always turn that house into a rental as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's what a lot of people do that. They might want to upgrade their home and keep that current home and use it as a rental. And in 15 years, it becomes, that cash flow can even go up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what would be the process if somebody's thinking about that right now? They're like, okay, I've been in my house a while, but I want to upgrade, or, maybe they want to downsize.
Yeah.
And they want to turn that into a rental property. Well,
I think that, and you can do these either way. You can talk to a mortgage broker first, or you can talk to a realtor first, or vice versa. But figure out where you're really at. Figure out what your house is really worth. You can't go by Zillow. Like, you can't just jump on the internet site and someone say, yes, your house is worth this. So you need to talk to someone and have someone look at your home. And at the same time, talk to the bank and make sure that whatever you want to do, you're in a position to be able to do. So, because if you want to keep your house as a rental, you're going to need a certain amount of money to go buy the next one. If you need to sell that house, you need to figure out how much money you'll get out to go towards the next one. So, it's got to start with the bank and the real estate agent.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, so for the folks who think, I can just go on the internet, I can post on the internet and sell it, or, what would your advice be to them? What's more beneficial?
Well, I think finding out an accurate value. If like there's a lot of places online that you can look. Like, a lot of people, I've gotten many calls over the years of people said, well, I looked on Tom Green's website and it says 168,000. So it could be worth 148,000 or 188,000. You can't go off of that.
Yeah.
And typically in Texas, that's where Zillow gets their value.
Oh,
so
okay.
And I've tested it. If you look on Zillow, typically that number they have for your estimate will be what's on the tax office.
Okay.
So in Texas, sales prices aren't disclosed. So Zillow doesn't know our sales prices. So there's no way for them to know what something is worth without knowing the data that we have that we do not allow them to have in Texas.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Definitely.
That's confusing, but it's,
No, it explains it. So to get a more accurate value, you would need to consult someone.
Yeah. Like the example I've used, I don't know, someone told me this one time, but so you got two houses, identical houses next to each other. They're both sitting on Briar Grove. Both built the same year, both the same size. One of them has done extensive remodeling, and one of them has shag carpet and green bathrooms from 1975. The tax office looks at those homes the same exact way.
Okay.
They're 2,000 square foot, 1975 built homes. And so one's worth more than the other. And so that's why you have to walk through the house to get the accurate value.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't just take it at the face.
Yeah. Like I get the question, I get them all the time, but hey, what is my house worth? I can tell you a generalized idea of what houses on Briar Grove built in 1975 are worth, but yours might be above or below. Mm-hmm. So, and again, you can't, just like a car, you know, not all Nissan Altimas are worth the same thing either. Depends on how good you took care of them.
Yeah, exactly. You got to go see it and walk around it, you know, do the walk around for sure. So, for another thing, for folks who are maybe they're looking at those websites, maybe they're looking at your website and they think, oh, I love this house, but there's no way I could, you know, it just, that price range isn't what I can do.
Yeah.
So, I guess I know it's between, you know, like the homeowner and everybody, but explain the negotiation process and how that works.
Okay. Well, generally, when the house is for sale and they're asking a certain amount, and the buyer's coming in and they've looked with their agent, and they're going to put in an offer, they can offer whatever they want. Our market right now has gotten so competitive that you really have to rely on the agent you're working with to come up with a good idea of what it's going to take to buy that house. Because we have houses right now that there was one yesterday that it got listed. Within one day, they got 5 offers.
Wow.
So, 2 years ago, you might have been able to offer a little bit lower. You might have been able to ask the seller to help with your closing costs, which can run thousands of dollars. Today, you're not going to be able to get that much off the house because it's so competitive. So it really depends on, if a house just hits the market and it's the one you want, you might have to pay what they're asking to get it.
Yeah.
And you might have to pay more than that. Just because it's so hot, and a lot of these properties aren't lasting but a day or two.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's houses that have been on the market over 100 days. It could be that they're just flat out overpriced, but and those are the ones that if you want to try to get a good deal, you might be able to go in and offer low.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.